Fantastic music for you there. Elton John welcoming us back into the 5 o'clock hour here at Powers to the People on Talk Radio 1380 WNRR Augusta, where the radio revolution is brewing. Philadelphia Freedom, kind of in honor to our founding fathers, and of course our founding president, George Washington, who happens to be celebrating his birthday today. And we have on the phone with us Richard Lim, and we're going to get back to Richard right after I give you the weather here. 76, mostly sunny skies right now. It is a gorgeous day outside. And look for an overnight low tonight down to 43. Tomorrow partly cloudy, 62 and 40. And then just nice weather for about the next week. And maybe a little chance for rain on Friday. But other than that, spring has sprung here in the southeast at least. And what kind of weather you got up there in New York, Richard?
Oh, you know, I'm actually in California right now, so I don't think you're going to want to hear about that.
Well, so you have even better weather than we have.
Oh, yeah, well, I spent a year in Syracuse, and that was incredible. Incredible experience. Definitely a little nippier than it is in California, I'll say.
Well, you know, Richard, I was in California this past August, and I had a chance to visit the Nixon Library and the Reagan Library.
Oh, nice.
But what was really cool was that I was staying with my friend who lived like 5 blocks away from the beach, and at that time it was the U.S. Open for surfing, and the weather was just phenomenal. I didn't want to see Augusta, Georgia ever again in my life.
Well, yeah. For those of you just joining us, Richard Lim has a website that is just phenomenal. If you're interested in history at all, especially the history of our first president, George Washington, you need to go to firstinpeace.com and check it out. Richard, tell me, how did George Washington become the general that he was? How did he become the leader of our little ragtag forces back in the Revolutionary War days? Who chose him to be the leader? How did he become the general that he eventually did become?
Sure. Well, basically you have to go back to the time when revolution was beginning to brew in the colonies, late 1760s, early 1770s. And you find that Washington, who up until then was basically a small business owner, he was running his plantation, you find that he begins getting involved in a cause, based on principles. And essentially those principles were provoked by the injustices of the British system, that he felt was corrupt, that he felt treated American colonists like second-class citizens. And then, as a man of the community, as a leader of the community, he was a vestryman at his church. He was a member of the House of Burgesses. He knows a lot of people. He knows people in Virginia, and basically he gets invited to go to the First and Second Continental Congress, where automatically he's on a larger stage, more than the colony of Virginia. He meets John Adams and Patrick Henry. He meets all the leaders and eventually the future leaders of a country that hadn't been born yet. And people realize that there's something different about him. He isn't hot-headed. He isn't fiery. There are a lot of fiery speakers there. There are a lot of hot-headed patriots, a lot of ambitious people. And I think with Washington, it was a combination of virtue and savvy. They knew that he was a man of virtue. They knew that he had military experience and that he was courageous. But he was also savvy because he knew how to handle his ambitions, and they liked that. And I think at the time, what was the greatest enemy to them? It was power. The idea of power, that the British government exercising too much power, and they were looking for a man who seemed to have that amount of reserve that he could be trusted with power. And he was the most logical person. Now, if you're talking directly, who was the person that put him in that position? It was John Adams. He was the one that nominated Washington when there was a need for a commander. But at the same time, I think that you have to, you look at history, and a lot of times history, there are a lot of different currents that kind of come together at the right time at the right place. John Adams needed the support of Virginia for his cause, for the cause of the American colonies, to unify the country. not all the delegates supported the idea of independence. Not all of them supported the idea of using force and fighting back against the British. So he needed support from Virginia, and it just so happened that George Washington was from Virginia. And at the same time, George Washington had already impressed them with his with his reserved manner. And so when you have all those things, like it happens so many times in history, it's a confluence of different elements that come together, and the right person is chosen at the right time. And Washington himself would describe a lot of these things as providence, that it was the infinite, the almighty that made it all happen. And sometimes I guess maybe that's all you can say.
Well, and as your website says, he was tasked with by history to lead a ragtag force of amateur soldiers against the greatest fighting force in the world, and his army undermanned, underfed, and highly undisciplined. He was constrained, of course, by the Republican fear of standing army and by the dictates of feckless Congress and the self-interested states, and his army dissolved every year, and he needed to recruit continuously, and he was tasked to win this war against a superpower without violating Republican principles, and so they did have to have a lot of trust in this guy, and so it just seems like he was the right man at the right place at the right time, and that he was able to accomplish this while actually respecting civilian authority is one of the great accomplishments of the modern era, as you write on your website. And I just think it's an amazing website, and we're privileged to have you on the program today. If you're just joining us, we have Richard Lim. He has a website, firstinpeace.com, which I would think is one of the places, if you want to learn about our first president of the United States and understand history and how our founders actually came together, how we won the Revolutionary War, and the man who was responsible in large part for that. You need to go to this website, firstinpeace.com. And Richard Lim, if you will hang with us one more time, I'd love to get you to finish out this half hour with us, okay?
Oh, I'd be honored.
All right, thank you. We'll be right back more with Richard Lim right after these messages.
We don't care